Dinar Shift. The global financial system finds itself at a point of profound and unprecedented change, a moment that many observers have long awaited with anticipation and meticulous preparation. For countless individuals across the world, holding the Iraqi dinar has represented not merely an asset but a sustained belief in the economic potential of a nation striving to rebuild its financial standing on the global stage. This long-held conviction has often been tested by years of geopolitical turbulence, fluctuating market sentiments, and the relentless skepticism of those who doubted the feasibility of such a significant financial resurgence. Yet, through the pervasive uncertainty and periods of extended silence from official channels, a resilient community has persisted in their vigilance, remaining informed and ready for a definitive breakthrough. The narrative surrounding Iraq's economic potential has now entered a phase where what was once dismissed as remote speculation is beginning to resonate with a clarity and intensity that demands serious consideration. This significant shift in energy and focus is being widely discussed among financial analysts and observers, who note that it marks a clear inflection point in the timeline of global monetary discussions related to emerging markets. This period is referred to by many as the activation of a new phase within a larger global revaluation (RV) process, signaling a heightened tempo in the complex machinery of international finance. The concept of an activation window, specifically referencing a restricted multi-hour period for high-level coordination, has only amplified the already heightened anticipation among those following the details of these developments closely. This current moment reflects an era where the global financial system is undergoing one of its most comprehensive structural and technological transformations in modern history. Central banks, multinational regulatory bodies, and digital payment organizations are all engaged in a sustained effort to retool the very foundations of global monetary policy. This systemic overhaul is driven by the imperative to adapt to a rapidly evolving landscape shaped by complex geopolitical realignments, the rise of sophisticated digital settlement systems, and the increasing demand for instantaneous cross-border trade capabilities. The changes are often subtle and invisible to the general public, yet they are profoundly meaningful to the infrastructure that governs international commerce and banking. Nations across the Middle East, Asia, Europe, and the Americas are actively implementing deep modernization reforms to align their domestic financial frameworks with these new global standards. These initiatives include the widespread adoption of real-time or instant settlement networks, the strategic expansion of digital platforms often built upon asset-backed principles, and the enforcement of stricter transparency requirements across all banking operations. Such measures are designed with the dual purpose of preventing financial manipulation and significantly enhancing systemic trust across international clearinghouses. This broad, coordinated global movement is the essential context for understanding Iraq's ongoing efforts to restore its credibility and strengthen its monetary sovereignty. Despite decades of internal challenges, the Republic of Iraq has been diligently working to align its financial apparatus with this comprehensive global wave of reform. The ultimate goal is to restore the nation's standing, modernize its antiquated banking infrastructure, and ensure its full compliance with international financial protocols. The initiation of any broadly defined global revaluation activity must be viewed as a single yet crucial milestone within this much broader wave of synchronized international reform efforts. The significance of the current financial environment does not rest on the isolated actions of any single government, but rather on the expansive synchronization unfolding among numerous financial systems worldwide, all working toward a goal of improved stability. While interpretations and speculative expectations vary widely across investor communities, financial analysts generally concur that the activities being observed reflect a profound, deeper global push toward more efficient liquidity mechanisms. This push also includes a greater effort to ensure that national currency values, particularly across emerging markets, are better aligned with their demonstrable, real-world economic potential and resource bases. This fundamental shift away from purely speculative valuation models toward systems anchored in verifiable national productivity and assets is a core principle driving the current global financial evolution. It marks a move toward greater realism and structural accountability in international trade and currency exchange. The concept of tiers, often referenced in discussions surrounding global financial transitions, can initially be confusing, particularly for those new to the space. However, this structure is based on standard, systematic practices employed during any large-scale monetary or regulatory rollout across multiple jurisdictions. In international finance, this use of a staged implementation model is a necessary procedural safeguard, allowing central banks and their global partner institutions to introduce profound reforms gradually and methodically. This measured approach ensures that systemic stability is meticulously maintained throughout the entire transition process, preventing any abrupt or destabilizing shocks to the market. Typically, the higher tiers in such a rollout structure involve sovereign entities, major governmental institutions, and the largest institutional financial players. The subsequent stages then sequentially incorporate commercial banks, significant corporate participants, and eventually the broad base of private individuals. All of these participants operate under carefully structured, regulated frameworks. In the context of currency transition discussions, Tier 4 billions is a common term used to represent the phase that includes pre-registered private holders who have prepared their necessary documentation and are compliant with established formal exchange protocols and regulatory requirements. While the specific, localized procedures for this phase can vary depending on jurisdiction, the regulatory authorities involved, and the participating financial institutions, the underlying principle remains consistent. This phase involves private individuals who have maintained a state of readiness to engage with the system, once the official activation signal is clearly issued. The true significance of this phase is not the speculative excitement that frequently surrounds it, but rather its function as a carefully timed and integral component of a much larger global monetary engineering initiative. It is a procedural step designed to ensure systematic integrity. This meticulous coordination across different tiers is essential because it guarantees that liquidity flows into the financial system in a controlled, systematic, and entirely predictable fashion, rather than suddenly or chaotically. This tiered and measured approach mirrors similar, proven strategies historically utilized by central banks worldwide during significant events like currency redenominations, major rate adjustments, or vast digital platform migrations. Understanding the necessity of this structured sequence helps to clarify why significant events unfold in a deliberate, step-by-step progression, rather than manifesting as sudden, all-at-once systemic changes. It underscores the guiding principle of systemic integrity in global financial operations. During periods of major financial system recalibration, it is a well-established and necessary practice for central banks, digital clearinghouses, and international regulatory authorities to operate within restricted, highly structured activation windows. These defined intervals are technically necessary to allow specialized teams to precisely synchronize sprawling global databases, verify complex internal ledgers, coordinate delicate rate adjustments, and ensure that every single participating institution is in perfect alignment before broader public operations can safely resume. The current restricted transition window, frequently associated with the progression of global revaluation activity, is a prime example of this meticulously calculated approach to managing liquidity and infrastructure alignment. Such highly technical windows are not intended to function as large-scale public announcements. Instead, they are quietly executed technical intervals during which high-level financial infrastructure undergoes critical validation and internal review. By operating under strict time constraints, regulatory bodies ensure that any fundamental adjustments to settlement protocols, rate synchronization mechanisms, or international cross-border systems are implemented in a clean, fully traceable, and auditable manner. This practice has become even more critically important in an era where sophisticated digital settlement systems operate at near-instantaneous speeds, demanding precise calibration to prevent the emergence of any systemic imbalances. For financial analysts and expert observers who are closely tracking these complex developments, the very existence of such a structured, short-duration window signals a profound degree of heightened coordination and rapid, high-frequency communication among the world's major financial hubs. It must never be interpreted as a consumer-facing event or a sign of public availability. Rather, it serves as a direct reflection of the escalating sophistication and increasingly stringent security requirements that characterize modern, technologically advanced financial architecture. In the most essential sense, it is a technical marker, a quiet indicator of ongoing infrastructure alignment that emphasizes the sheer complexity and surgical precision required in today's global monetary ecosystem. Central banks across the globe have decisively entered an accelerated and highly technical phase of modernization, a strategic response driven by the rapidly rising demand for instantaneous financial transactions, greatly enhanced compliance mechanisms, and digital infrastructure capable of seamless interfacing with new, resource-backed economic technologies. From the Middle East and Asia to Europe and North America, these essential upgrades universally include the development of robust, high-speed cross-border settlement networks, the extensive expansion of digital identity verification systems, and the strategic integration of distributed ledger, DLT, or blockchain-inspired architectures into legacy banking frameworks. Iraq's extensive modernization efforts, led by the Central Bank of Iraq (CBI), directly mirror this pervasive worldwide strategic shift. Over the past several years, the CBI has systematically introduced comprehensive reforms specifically designed to strengthen financial governance, dramatically improve the monitoring of liquidity flows, and bring the country into full alignment with demanding international standards. These critical initiatives encompass upgrading all electronic payment systems, integrating strict anti-money laundering, AML protocols, and enhancing overall transparency across both the public and private banking sectors. While these sustained efforts often appear technical and bureaucratic from the outside, they collectively represent a major strategic leap forward for Iraq's entire economic posture and its fundamental credibility within the competitive global marketplace. Economists and development experts consistently note that this ongoing, focused modernization in Iraq reflects a much larger, observable transformation occurring across numerous developing and resource-rich nations. These countries are strategically seeking to leverage digital infrastructure to significantly bolster economic stability and reliably attract sustainable foreign investment across multiple sectors. The decisive global movement toward the adoption of sophisticated asset-backed accounting models and highly efficient digital settlement systems is an integral part of a broader collective effort. This initiative seeks to ensure that the next foundational era of global finance is built upon principles of verifiable value representation, absolute security, and efficiently managed resources. What is being observed today is therefore not an isolated domestic Iraqi development, but rather a single pivotal chapter within a much larger systemic global shift toward a more interconnected, technologically fortified, and fully accountable financial landscape for the 21st century. One of the most compelling characteristics of the current global financial environment is the unparalleled level of multinational coordination that is clearly unfolding across diverse financial institutions, regulatory bodies, and emerging digital asset networks. The past decade has been defined by a steady, methodical push toward harmonizing complex compliance standards, validating the structural integrity of national reserve frameworks, and constructing interoperable systems capable of seamlessly interfacing across sovereign borders without friction or delay. This synchronization is the hallmark of modern financial development. Across Asia, central banks have proactively implemented advanced blockchain-compatible digital ledger systems to dramatically improve the real-time tracking of both liquidity flows and complex cross-border transactions. Concurrently in the Middle East, financial authorities have strategically deployed rigorous asset verification frameworks that are intrinsically linked to vast national energy and commodity reserves. Meanwhile, in Europe and North America, monetary institutions have adopted strict transparency guidelines and rapidly accelerated the full integration of high-speed, instant settlement platforms into their existing systems. These profound, interconnected global developments collectively signal a measured, deliberate shift away from purely opaque, fiat-based valuation models toward the adoption of a hybrid financial structure. This new model is characterized by asset-linked, technologically enhanced monetary ecosystems that prioritize measurable value. Such monumental changes do not occur suddenly or overnight, nor do they adhere to the often simplistic, rumor-driven narratives that circulate among speculative groups. Instead, they organically emerge through deliberate international cooperation, multi-year strategic planning, and the disciplined, phased rollout of new settlement technologies. The decisive move toward measurable value representation, particularly through the use of asset-backed frameworks, reflects an urgent and growing international demand for structural stability, comprehensive accountability, and true cross-system compatibility. As more nations continue to integrate these secure and transparent systems, the global monetary order is inexorably transforming itself into one that fundamentally prioritizes transparency, interoperability, and long-term resilience. This current moment, which is often emotionally charged and highly romanticized in various investment communities, is, in objective reality, a single, complex chapter in a much larger, highly coordinated international evolution that will continue to shape the entire future of global finance for decades to come. For many years, those financial strategists who carefully study the dynamics of large-scale financial transformation have understood that truly meaningful global change rarely, if ever, arrives with the fanfare or suddenness frequently imagined by rumor-driven narratives. Instead, genuine change unfolds through a quiet, meticulously orchestrated series of technical steps. These include exhaustive system testing, granular regulatory calibration, rigorous cross-border verification, and the detailed policy harmonization necessary to ensure that market stability is never compromised. The hypothetical activation of a new phase within any broader monetary transition represents the complex culmination of years of essential groundwork that has taken place meticulously behind the public scene. Savvy observers who focus their attention on genuine macroeconomic trends recognize that these financial phases do not emerge spontaneously or by chance. They are professionally designed, repeatedly tested, strategically refined, and implemented with meticulous precision to ensure that global markets remain systematically stable and orderly throughout the entire process. Yet, even within this highly structured and disciplined environment, experienced analysts consistently caution against becoming overly consumed by unchecked speculative expectations, particularly those narratives that promise instant, overnight wealth or dramatic transformation. The core purpose of any genuine reform, whether real or conceptual, is always long-term systemic stability, not short-term personal windfalls driven by circulating rumors. In navigating periods of complex economic transition, educators and financial strategists consistently stress that transparency, patience, and unwavering regulatory compliance are the absolute, essential principles that allow participants to engage responsibly and safely. Those individuals who approach this highly complex process with a mindset of reasoned curiosity and strategic discipline, rather than with emotional urgency or reactive haste, are ultimately positioning themselves most strongly to truly understand the deeper mechanics of what is unfolding. Knowledge, systematically acquired and verified, remains the single most reliable tool available for interpreting major monetary developments, regardless of whether they are real, hypothetical, or fictionalized. Within this context of major hypothetical global financial change, individuals following developments related to currencies like the Iraqi Dinar are strongly encouraged to maintain a mindset that is firmly grounded in objective observation, rather than being driven by speed or haste. While community discussions frequently reference highly structured tiers, private exchange procedures, and time-sensitive coordination windows, it remains critical to remember that legitimate, significant monetary reform is invariably and always communicated solely through official institutional channels. Real-world institutions such as the Central Bank of Iraq, the International Monetary Fund, or the U.S. Treasury issue authoritative updates only through their verified public press releases and official platforms. Therefore, any information appearing in unofficial chat rooms, speculative online networks, or unverified social media channels should be strictly viewed as speculation or, at best, creative exploration, rather than as authoritative evidence or institutional fact. The crucial skill in this environment is the ability to clearly distinguish between mere entertainment, fictionalized narrative exploration, and genuine authoritative information. Maintaining this clarity of thought and emotional balance is essential to ensure that people do not become swept up in compelling narratives that create a false sense of urgency, but fundamentally lack any solid institutional grounding or verification. Just as the vast and complex global financial systems are structured to move slowly, deliberately, and with extreme caution, so too must observers pace their personal expectations and manage their emotional reactions. The most constructive purpose of following such a complex storyline is not to passively chase unverified promises or potential windfalls, but rather to actively learn how large-scale economic frameworks truly operate in the real world. This also involves understanding how these structures are likely to evolve and adapt within a future that is increasingly defined by technological integration. The guiding principles of this evolution are consistently technology, transparency, and trust. The global financial system, whether in a fictional or a factual context, is currently navigating an accelerating digital revolution that fundamentally mirrors real-world technological trends such as distributed ledger technology, DLT, sophisticated blockchain-inspired architectures, and comprehensive cross-border settlement modernization. These critical innovations introduce unprecedented new levels of transparency, making it technically possible for every major transaction, settlement action, and comprehensive audit trail to be verified, with a reliability that was fundamentally impossible under previous traditional, paper-based systems within countries like Iraq. This expansion of digital infrastructure significantly strengthens institutional trust. Furthermore, the integration of digital infrastructure substantially reduces the potential for corruption and significantly enhances overall investor confidence. Modern digital architectures now make it technically feasible to align a currency's valuation much more directly and measurably with a nation's actual economic productivity, its documented resource output, and its overall trade performance. This creates a much more stable and rational foundation for potential incremental revaluations or recalibrations, should any nation decide to responsibly embark on such a path. While the fictionalized storyline amplifies these developments for dramatic narrative effect, the underlying economic principle remains deeply grounded in genuine, verifiable economic theory. Sustainable monetary value, in any credible economic model, must always fundamentally reflect a nation's real assets and real output. These profound transitions are inherently long-term in nature, highly methodical in their execution, and built upon years of deep technological integration and institutional commitment. Whether discussed in imaginative narrative worlds or implemented within actual, sober economic policy, meaningful structural transformation is always characterized as a process of gradual, measured construction, rather than a sudden, unpredictable upheaval or collapse. Staying grounded amid change is therefore the most important skill for any observer. Whenever fictional scenarios introduce or portray major financial shifts, one common and pervasive side effect, which perfectly mirrors reality, is the rapid, widespread proliferation of misinformation and rumor. Social media platforms, informal rumor networks, and emotionally charged online communities can easily amplify speculative, unverifiable claims that diverge dramatically from official institutional fact. This is precisely why readers and viewers of such stories are consistently encouraged to adopt a deeply grounded and measured approach to all information received. In both fact and fiction, the most responsible and safest path includes consulting only licensed financial professionals, verifying all information directly from official banking authorities, and firmly resisting any narrative that promises guaranteed returns or privileged secretive access. The imaginative world of large-scale currency reform is admittedly rich with intrigue, potent symbolism, and highly complex international coordination. However, it should never, under any circumstance, be misinterpreted as an instruction or a prompt to make personal financial decisions that carry real-world risk. Instead, this narrative serves as an essential reminder about the profound importance of critical thinking during all times of perceived change and high uncertainty. The more dramatic or sensational the economic storyline appears, the more absolutely essential it becomes to meticulously separate fact from fiction and intellectual curiosity from any potential financial commitment. Grounded thinking fundamentally transforms systemic uncertainty into actionable insight, allowing observers to fully appreciate the unfolding narrative and the complex details without being emotionally swept into unrealistic or baseless expectations. The bigger picture reveals a new, evolving global financial framework. In this fictional scenario, the world is portrayed as being actively in the midst of constructing an entirely new financial framework, one that is designed to transcend the intrinsic limitations of older, traditional systems and fully embrace a future centered on measurable value, deep transparency, and robust international cooperation. This evolving comprehensive structure is not fundamentally about any single currency, like the dinar, or an isolated specific economic event. Instead, it is the cumulative product of decades of accumulated reform, strategic technological breakthroughs, and significant shifts in global geopolitical priorities. Within this imagined world, regional alliances and economic blocs grow significantly stronger as nations universally recognize that economic resilience increasingly depends on sophisticated, disciplined collaboration rather than fragmented, self-defeating competition. Digital identity verification networks, cross-border asset registries, and harmonized compliance standards form the core structural backbone of this new system. The fictional emergence of synchronized monetary phases merely represents the essential procedural architecture underlying these necessary transitions. It is not, as often rumored, a sensational trigger or a secretive payout mechanism. In this expanded universe, governments are deliberately choosing to anchor their national currencies to verifiable, tangible resources such as energy output, strategic commodity reserves, or digital productivity metrics. This profound and fundamental shift is intended to prevent the artificial suppression of value and proactively promote equitable and balanced international trade. This strategic monetary transition does not occur suddenly, nor is it driven by obscure underground groups or speculative financial tiers. Instead, it represents the natural, orderly evolution of a global community that is strategically seeking greater fairness, robust accountability, and shared prosperity for all participants. The referenced 36-hour coordination period within this fictional model symbolizes nothing more than essential technical testing, infrastructure signaling, and systematic calibration within a much broader, sustained movement toward a highly advanced, digital-era monetary integration. Verified updates can only come from official sources. In this hypothetical financial environment, the paramount importance of distinguishing between verified institutional communication and unverified, speculative chatter becomes even more critically pronounced. Fictional reforms, just like their complex real-world counterparts, must strictly adhere to processes rooted in established law, rigorous governance, and formal, independent oversight. Within this storyline, national central banks, finance ministries, and major international regulatory organizations remain the sole authoritative sources for any and all updates regarding currency changes, strategic technological upgrades, or significant policy adjustments. The fictional Central Bank of Iraq, alongside its global counterparts, releases authoritative information strictly through its official channels, which include public press conferences, formally published circulars, regulatory bulletins, and officially sanctioned media outlets. Anything existing outside these channels, including unverified rumors of sudden rate changes, secret exchange locations, or informal redemption appointments, is strictly portrayed as unverified and consequently not recognized as legitimate within the narrative's established world-building. This vital distinction serves the dual purpose of protecting characters and observers from misinformation-driven decisions and simultaneously reinforcing the fundamental principle that legitimate economic change is always transparent, accountable, and documented. The fictional global framework depicted in this detailed narrative is intentionally structured to reward patience and due diligence above all else. It strongly underscores the fact that true financial literacy is robustly built upon a deep understanding of how official institutions formally communicate, how regulatory protocols functionally operate, and why credible, verified information rarely, if ever, arrives through private social groups or unvetted online communities. In this expansive story, as in real life, discipline and careful attention remain the absolutely essential traits for anyone who is responsibly navigating the complexities of large-scale financial transformation. This is a time for patience and perspective, as this fictional world undergoes the early complex phases of systemic financial transformation. Many individuals within the storyline experience a complex blend of anticipation, historical reflection, and genuine emotional fatigue. Years of waiting, researching, and mentally envisioning a future shaped by the promise of economic renewal have created an intense environment where even minor procedural developments can stir significant, profound reactions. Yet the narrative consistently demonstrates that genuine, sustainable transformation, whether technological, financial, or societal, unfolds only gradually and deliberately, never in haste. The characters who are portrayed as thriving in this complex moment are precisely those who understand that progress is very rarely linear or simple. They deeply recognize that institutional reforms fundamentally require careful, extensive drafting, rigorous testing, and multi-layered official approval before they can be implemented responsibly and without systemic risk. In this imagined universe, financial educators consistently remind their audiences that the heart of revaluation or structural recalibration is not speculative profit, but rather structural fairness and systemic stability. These reforms are aimed at correcting historical imbalances, modernizing outdated systems, and strategically creating opportunities for nations whose potential has been hindered by past conflict or limited access to global capital markets. Thus, in this environment, patience becomes far more than just a virtue. It elevates into a fundamental strategic mindset. It is the discipline that allows individuals to deliberately focus on comprehensive preparation rather than purely emotional prediction, and careful reflection rather than impulsive reaction. The narrative consistently emphasizes the importance of gratitude, intellectual humility, and disciplined planning, portraying them as the critical emotional anchors necessary to navigate the profound uncertainties of large-scale structural change. By consciously embracing this broader perspective, the characters in this story ultimately discover that the deepest, most enduring value of this transition lies not merely in its final outcome, but in the profound wisdom gained throughout the entire demanding journey. The road ahead is focused on building a sustainable future. As the second phase of this fictional monetary evolution strategically unfolds, the collective focus naturally shifts from often distracting speculation to the core principles of education, empowerment, and deep structural understanding. Characters who may have once concentrated exclusively on the possibility of rapid, short-term gains now find themselves drawn to the deeper mechanics of global financial reform. The intricacies of digital settlement systems, the necessity of compliant synchronization, resource-based valuation models, and the growing complex interconnectedness of all international markets. The storyline powerfully portrays a world where sustainable, long-term success depends not on the pursuit of secret opportunities or private tips, but on informed, open engagement with fully transparent, documented systems. The individuals who are shown to excel in this evolving environment are those who take the dedicated time to thoroughly study official regulatory frameworks, Learn precisely how modern digital ledger platforms operate and understand why institutional reforms must progress painstakingly step by step, rather than attempting a reckless all-at-once change. Whether they are currency holders, professional asset managers, or simply curious observers fascinated by global economics, they begin to collectively recognize that the financial future belongs only to those who consistently prioritize learning over noise. The narrative strongly emphasizes that this monumental transition is fundamentally about responsibility. How nations, major institutions, and individuals collectively utilize the powerful tools of transparency and new technology to strategically build long-term, lasting stability. By consciously replacing speculative thinking with solid education and emotional urgency with measured, rational analysis, the world in this detailed story strategically positions itself to thrive in a sophisticated financial era that is clearly defined by clarity, accountability, and shared opportunity. This imagined future rewards intellectual curiosity, rigorous discipline, and uncompromising integrity above all else, serving as a constant reminder that meaningful structural evolution fundamentally requires not only new advanced systems but, even more critically, new enlightened mindsets. This is a scenario of controlled historic transformation. In this fictional universe, the phrase Tier 4 billions activation has successfully captured the public imagination. Not because it guarantees instant financial change, but primarily because it powerfully symbolizes a highly sophisticated, global transformation effort that is meticulously taking place quietly beneath the surface. The narrative clearly reveals that the referenced 36-hour coordination period is not, as frequently rumored, a secret payout window or a hidden redemption period. Instead, it serves as a powerful representation of the extreme precision and unwavering discipline that must govern all modern high-level economic architecture. It serves to illustrate precisely how global institutions meticulously test new systems, systematically align complex policies, and fully synchronize advanced technological frameworks to ensure continuous systemic stability in an intricately interconnected world. One fictional analyst accurately summarizes this pivotal moment by declaring that it marks not a sudden, dramatic ending, but rather the measured, deliberate beginning of a new era. An era that is structurally defined by financial accountability, digital integrity, and robust international coherence. As the storyline continues to unfold, characters and all observers are strongly encouraged to maintain their absolute clarity, unwavering patience, and a firm, persistent commitment to seeking out only verified official information. The days and weeks immediately ahead promise further data, official communication, and expanded structural insights into the continuously evolving financial system. Until such time as official updates are released, the wisest and most responsible course of action remains to remain calm, stay fully informed through official channels, and fully respect the structured, measured process of global modernization. In this imagined world, the future of finance is not a sudden, unexpected arrival, but a continuous, disciplined unfolding. One that is carefully shaped by technology, transparency, and the collective, shared responsibility of nations striving toward a fairer, more stable global economy for all.